It's human nature that we find something that stimulates us a little and we find a way to really overdose on it until it could be deadly. Right? That's kind of our nature. I mean, they've found Egyptian hieroglyphics that were beer recipes. From we've been looking at getting high since we discovered that we could. It's just part of that's the destructive part of human nature.
One thing I find very interesting is meat and animal products have been with humans through the history of humankind, right? Probably it wasn't in the same amount of consumption that we have now because we have refrigerators and in the past we had to hunt for 3 days in order to get some food, some meat. And why is meat bad for people? Why is animal products are bad for humans, like from the scientific perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So, while meat has not been predominant in most of our historical ancestors, but it did show up here and there. And even when they look back at what they do is they look at fossils of feces, poop fossils, to look at what our ancestors ate. And they found paleo fossils and they ate almost entirely plants. It was little bits of animal products, not big steak meals, right? Like we have now. So when they did eat meat, it was very sparingly. And I think a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, I mean, one, as long as there was bountiful produce, there was no reason to do that. If you could just walk around and eat leaves and eat vegetables and eat fruits, you're fine. But when there are certain climates where it was winter, they might have started to eat meat for those reasons. Although the theory is probably it was mostly scavenging because we're not built for hunting. We don't have claws. We're not fast. Right? We're not going to catch a deer on our own 2 legs, right? So more likely they were scavenging what other animals might have left behind or eating bugs like a lot of our ape-like ancestors, or, mostly plants, maybe a little bit of bugs or something, but it wasn't a huge part of the diet. And the fossil records show that the majority of what people were eating were plants. That's what they were living on. So it was a small amount. Once we created farming where we could trap animals and have them at the ready, it went up more. And then refrigeration, of course, as well, it went up more. So it's not our natural diet, but it is one that if we prepare it in a certain way, if we cook it, add spices to it, it tastes good at that point, and it stimulates these neurotransmitters in our brain just like drugs do. So just like, when we found plants that if we chewed on the plant leaf, we could stay very awake and alert while we were foraging or doing our nightly, dance around the fire. Then we found, if you really take a lot of these plants and turn it into a powder and snort it up your nose, then you really can have a party, right? It's human nature that we find something that stimulates us a little and we find a way to really overdose on it until it could be deadly. Right? That's kind of our nature. I mean, they've found Egyptian hieroglyphics that were beer recipes. From we've been looking at getting high since we discovered that we could. It's just part of that's the destructive part of human nature. So just because we've done things doesn't mean that it's the right thing. But definitely we weren't designed physiologically for it, but we can tolerate certain levels. But when you are consuming high amounts of animal products, so for example, if you look at just meat intake, dairy intake, when you look at the studies around this, what they found is the more animal products people eat, the higher their rates of diseases in all areas, heart disease, cancer, all sorts of different diseases. In any area you look at, the disease rates go up higher and higher. Now we have a new study that was just done where they were looking at rates of moderate to severe COVID compared to diet. That study shows what I've been teaching for over a decade, which is that any kind of animal products interferes with the proper functioning of your immune system. It raises your risk of autoimmune disease, but it also raises your risk of infections and decreases your ability to fight infections. So it's a really important concept. And there's many different theories that people can have, right? Everyone with a mouth has their own theory, but results are what matters most. Anybody can sound good saying something, but what are the results? And the results show over and over again that the more plants you eat, the healthier you will be, the more resistant to infections, the more ability you have to heal and repair your body. And the more animal products you eat, the higher your risk of disease, death, infection, all of those things. So it's a really important fact, and it's become more and more accepted and widely known, but still not widely known enough to save all the lives that still need to be saved.